Empire Windrush that sailed from Kingston, Jamaica to Tilbury Docks, London in June 1948 with, some sources say, not 492, but 1,027 passengers on board, is widely regarded as a symbol of the start of the British multicultural society. Before and since, thousands from Africa, the Caribbean, and the Commonwealth have come initially to work, study, and visit before going on to make the UK their home. A country that has historically been marked by antipathy towards people who were not white, as seen through the lens of the transatlantic slave trade, colonialism, and racism, has nevertheless, because of the tenacity, aspiration, and inspiration of Black and other minority ethnic people, resulted in places like London, Manchester, and Birmingham becoming beacons of multicultural diversity, some even called super diverse. This ethnic diversity is evident in the 2021 census, with 5 main ethnicity groupings and 20 subcategories. Today, it can truly be said that a people who sought economic prosperity have exceeded that aspiration and gone on to make major contributions to post-war British society, as well as supporting the countries from which they came through remittances and investments. Small Heath Community Church draws its following from people with links to the Commonwealth, mainly of Caribbean and African heritage. The church community has established a series of activities to celebrate the upcoming Commonwealth Games and Windrush Day on June 22, which marks the contributions of those who have settled in the UK during the post-war era. Another facet of the Commonwealth celebrations planned by Small Heath Community Church is the Intergenerational project, by which young people and old people engage in conversation exchange about life then and life now. Because of demographics, the conversation is now between people whose heritage is from the Caribbean Commonwealth countries now living in Britain. It's a myth-busting exercise as young people hear firsthand how life was for their elders before coming to Britain and since. How they coped with the racism they encountered, and how they took up the challenge of making good on their quest for social and economic betterment for them and their families. For this project, youth interviews seniors, while seniors grapple with technology, like using the microphone properly. This intergenerational knowledge exchange between young people and their elders is crucial to remind and inform the young of their geographic, cultural, and spiritual roots in Africa, the Caribbean, and Commonwealth, helping them to reflect on the impact and benefits the Windrush generation played on improving their people's economic prospects, as well as contributing to the rebuilding efforts of Britain after the war. Hopefully inspiring the youths to pursue their dreams, overcoming whatever obstacles they find in their way.
So, can you tell us your name?
My name is Pancita Fletcher. I was born in Jamaica and I came here at the age of 32.
Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I've been here, I had 2 children, Carlos and Omar, and I had 2 grandchildren.
So you talk about you coming to the UK. So what was your actual first impression?
Very lonely, very sad.
Have you experienced any racial slurs?
Well, it was there, but you can't just take the racial slur to make yourself down. You're already lonely and sad already, so sometimes you even just says good morning to somebody, and when they look at you, it's like, oh, here's somebody else in my space. What are you doing here? But I just roll it over and just go until I find my footing to know this is where it's going to be involving. So I just take your time in anything you're going to do. Don't rush, because it doesn't come easy and it doesn't come with a free-flowing experience.
My name is Paulette Coleman, and I'm 70 years of age. I'm Isaac's nan.
How old were you when you moved to the UK?
Roughly about 38 years of age.
Well, with being 38 and having some experience in life, what was your first impression upon coming here?
Well, my first impression on arriving in the UK, he was my husband at the time, but he came and he met me at the airport, and we traveled from there back to Birmingham. And he was living in Smalley in a flat. Other people were living upstairs, and he introduced me to this Irish lady who was living above us. And from there, I was okay. I can remember meeting Sister Patsy one day on the road. And we started chatting.
How hard would you say was it leaving your homeland?
Well, leaving my home in Jamaica to come here, it wasn't an easy task, because you're leaving your family behind. I can remember I came here on Judith's birthday. I left Jamaica on Judith's birthday. Yeah, so that wasn't an easy thing for me. Right? And when I came here, I can remember I cried a lot. I cried a lot because I miss my family until I get used to the situation. In 1991, just a few months after I came here, my mom passed away. I wasn't even able to attend her funeral, because at that time I did not get my papers. Even though when we went to the immigration, they says I should have come to them, though they'd give me papers to travel. Well, that was that. So the legacy I left home is I left Judith. I left Ricky, who's now deceased, and Damien, who's here somewhere. And both Judith and Damien are now in the UK, and I would say they are doing well for themselves.
My name is Sister Henrietta Daly from the Caribbean, Montserrat.
Can you tell us some more about yourself?
Well, back from Montserrat, about myself. Like back home, when I used to be back home, I used to work, come from work, having the children to look after. Look after the children, then we have to go to church.
So, did you find that it was easy to find jobs here in the UK?
No, find jobs easy here. Because like, for instance, that when I came here, after the children them grow up, I have to go to the job center. Going to the job center, it wasn't easy. So after you go in there now, for a time now, they will send it from there and send it to Port Thames. So when they send it to Port Thames now, they will look jobs. They will look jobs for you. But I didn't get a job. Like every time I finished Port Thames, I have to go back to the job center.
Did you manage to get a job in the end? Or,
No.
oh, um, since you've come to the UK, how was life different in the UK compared to where you used to live?
Well, I feel life is more rough over here in England more than back home because you see, back home you don't worry about things like body pushing you like when you're here in England. Like for instance, I remember that when we came here first and we get our flat. And you just move in the flat and find as soon as you move in, housing, sending letter and telling you, well, if you don't pay your rent, they're going to evict you and there's kind of things there. And when we are that, it put this fear, and I tell you, I didn't want to go back home. I did really, really want to go back home. But I believe by God's grace that he brought me here for a reason.
My name is Joyce Granville.
During the early years of coming to the UK, did you experience any hardships or tragic events or anything like that?
Plenty, up and down, plenty hardship. You see, now in this pandemic where they are talking about hardships is around. In the 60s, it was very, very hard. Very hard. And the trouble about it is, bullying wasn't there. It was there, but people, we didn't even know about bullying. And when we find out about bullying, we could go and get whatever we want. But the one thing about it, and which I'm glad for, I've always lived a life close to other people, whether they are white, black, whatever color or race they are. And when we lived, as Sister Coleman was saying, in a flat or a masonette, we as people, neighbors, get together, and whatever you are short of, I might have a potato, I'll share it with you. You might have a loaf of bread, they share it, and we go around and we help each other. And that is the way that we get on, because many of us could not work because of small children.
Yeah.
And it's not in like these days now where you pay how many hundreds of pounds. We couldn't even get nurseries to put our children in. We had to put their names in and wait 6 or 7 months before we could take them to nursery.
Wow.
But as neighbors, we club together and help. And if we go to the bull ring and we see a bargain and we couldn't, we bring it and we share it together.
My name is Carol.
What was your best memory in the UK?
Well, my best memory is that I can have access to things much easier in terms that I can get on a bus to go into town much quicker than if I were back home. And if I want a dress also to wear out like this evening, I can go this morning and get it to wear this evening. And the shops as well, the supermarkets, they don't close very early. So then you have access to get what you need.
Your story is just truly incredible, but what advice would you give to us as young people?
My advice to you as young people, to keep your head up and to keep focus and to work hard, because as you're looking so beautiful in your color, that you'll have to work 10 times as hard to get to where you would want to get. But don't let that stop you.
Yeah.
Just continue to work hard because others are looking at you.
My name is Clarence King.
In your opinion, do you think Britain has progressed, Deacon King?
Oh, yes, yes. My first experience to say that Britain has progressed is when, about 4 weeks after I arrived in this country, going out one morning, and the milkman came and delivered the milk. And on top of the bottle of milk, he put 2 loaves of bread on there, unwrapped. And I don't have to tell you what happened, but I will. The dogs came and they just behind the bread. So, that was a very hoping experience for me because I wasn't expecting anything like that, to see anything like that. The other thing is coming off the boat in Southampton, because it's a boat that I came on. After I come off the boat to go and get the train, I noticed that the houses, they were all smoke coming out from the top of the roof. And I thought, my God, this is going to be a good experience because there's plenty of work here, because I thought there were factories. Until somebody enlightened me that there are houses. Well, of course, they'd have to have smoke coming out the chimney because there was no central heating then. So it's either a coal fire or a paraffin heater, which was, for the heaters was something that one would not live without, because you cook on it, you eat, you warm yourself on it, you do everything by it. Yeah.
Based on your experience, what advice would you give to younger people or youth?
Oh, work and work hard. Save and save hard. And start doing your own thing from now. Don't wait until tomorrow. The world is yours. The sky is the limit. Yeah? Do your own thing, because I've been in a successful little business for 26 years, working for myself, and I enjoy that. No one have to boss you or tell you when you can come, when you can go. Some encouraging you, you young ones, save your money while you're earning it, because the time will come when you can't earn it, and you won't be able to save.
You have to put your trust in the Almighty God. Whatever the Lord provide for you, you have to give him thanks and you have to give him praise. That is my advice to the younger generation. Whatever you're doing, do it in the best of your ability. Yeah, that the Lord will be, and you must try and walk in the beauty of the Lord, right? Because the Lord is there to make a way for you as well, as it is so as possible. The Lord is there to make a way for you. So put everything into the Almighty God, because it's there for your comfort, your healer, hiding place, storm, buckler, revealer, and counselor. So the Lord is there for you. So whatever you do, put your trust in the Almighty God, okay?
Thank
and
you.
my prayers is behind the entirely the younger generation, right?
You.
Okay?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jamari and I'm 13 years old.
My name is Isaac and I'm 15 years old.
My name's Penelope Angeletta Howe, and I'm old enough to be your parents.
And my name is Errol Anthony Howe.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Well, I came to England as a child, and I've lived here ever since. Married, I've got 4 children and 12 grandchildren.
So, what was your first impression?
First impression of the UK was how dark it was. Even though we arrived in the UK in May, everything just looked dark and clustered. Really, so there wasn't no open fields.
Yeah, I came to the UK in 1965. Came on my own, and like most young people, I didn't know my parents till I came to the airport to meet them. Coming to Birmingham was a bit confusing because just didn't understand the way things were set up. In Jamaica, I was brought up in the country, so everything was pure freedom. Milk the cow, look after the chickens, the goats, and things like that. And also work at a sugar mill with my grandparents. So coming here was a bit completely different. It took me months to get used to the environment.
So you told us about some jobs you had back home and what you had to do around. When coming to the UK, what sort of jobs did you get here?
You mean work jobs or work at home or
more like work jobs, like
work? Yeah. My first job was repairing motors for washing machines and also repairing irons and things like that. Believe it or not, the wages for a week, my first wages, was £10. It was a lot. Well, it's quite a bit of money then. That long time back in 1975. But that's the first job, and then I worked for a TV shop, delivering and installing TVs and fitting aerials on roofs. Further along, I kind of joined British Rail as a technician, telephone technician, and then on from there went to a company called Telephone Rentals, which was the same telephone work, repairing and installing telephones in different places in Birmingham. And then further on, I went to Mercury Communications and a company called Rakel, which was, they did telephone, but they were also a government company that did a lot of work for the army. So we had a lot of training on going into army bases and places like that. And it was like top security. There's certain things that you had to do the day before you go, and they had to know that you was coming the day before. I had to sign the official secret acts as well. And certain countries, I would have to let them know if I was going to that country, so they know, because of signing the secret acts, you had to be careful of what country you went to and all that. It's a bit strange because there's quite a few places around Warwick and a bit further out in Oxford that you wouldn't know existed, which was, very secure military bases and places like that I had to attend.
Well, did my schooling, most of my schooling here. So my first job at the age of 15 was working on Saturdays at a painting and decorating shop. Then after that, I worked as a shop assistant in a fashion shop. And then I went on to do admin work. Then we were known as secretary assistants. They're admin assistants now. Then from there, I went on to do my nursing, psychiatric nursing. Did my psychiatric nursing, left that and went into the private sector, working in mental homes for the mentally ill. And after that, we set up our own business and travel agents, and that's the job that I've done for the longest, really. Still doing it now.
So I know that you both said you came here from young. So what was schooling like over here compared to back home?
Well, schooling for me in Jamaica was good. I started school at the age of 4 because the school that we attended was run and owned by our family, with our family. So schooling was good, even though it was family. They were really strict, but at the same time, being family, we sort of got a bit pampered and got a bit spoilt. Especially me compared to my 2 sisters, because I was always crying. So, so I got a lot of attention, and then coming here and started in junior school. Also, I suppose you could say I was a bit of a teacher's pet as well, because the head teacher when we went, it was the head teacher that we went to that interviewed us and sort of accepted us for the school, and I think she was a little bit impressed with us because at the age of 7 and coming from Jamaica, our reading ability and our educational ability was higher than the children at the same age in this country. So we got a bit spoilt. I got put up reading books that were for the 10-year-olds. At 7, I was reading their books, and the head teacher kind of went every class that I went to during the infant school. She went and introduced me specifically to the teacher, as opposed to all the other children that were there. She'd go in and introduce me. So I suppose in a way I was a bit spoiled, a bit of a teacher's pet, because she was just so impressed by us, how well we were dressed, how clever we were, how bright we were. I don't know what it was for my older sister, because she's 5 years older than me, so she came and started in secondary school, while my sister and myself my younger sister and myself started in the infants and junior school. One of the other things that was different as well, that I had difficulty with, was the way that we spoke to the teachers. In Jamaica, you dare not look in an adult's face when you're talking to them. You look down. That was mark of respect. If you look them in the face, you were being disrespectful. However, in the schools here in the UK, it was disrespectful to look down at the floor when the teachers are talking to you. You're supposed to look them in the face, and I had a lot of difficulty with that, because you go home and you can't look at your parents when they're talking to you. And then when you're at school, you have to look at the teachers when they're talking to you. So I had a bit of difficulty with that. That was the thing that was different. The one thing as well that I was kind of like grateful for is in the schools here, you only got caned if you was if you was bad and you got sent to the head teacher for fighting or whatever. But in Jamaica, if you don't learn your lesson, if you don't know your lessons like you ABC, you 1, 2, 3, or simple words, spelling simple words, and you got that wrong, you got caned. So when I was here and got words wrong, I wasn't scared because I know I wasn't going to get caned. Mm.
Yeah. I think in Jamaica I only spent about less than a year in school. Because I was living in the country, it was a bit difficult to get to school. I mean, they had me really kind of working most of the time, so I never had the chance to do a lot of schooling. Coming here was quite good, really, because from the first day in infant school, I think they put me in the infant school to begin with, which I think they made a mistake because I was 7 when I came here. I should have been in junior school, and for the first few months they didn't realize that. But it was easy making friends from the first day. Made friends, and then on to senior school, and that was okay as well. One thing I couldn't work out was everybody used to say, "Oh, there's a rumor going around that I was the best fighter at school," and I've never once had a fight in school, so I couldn't work that one out at all.
What was education like for you? Was it segregated?
No, it wasn't. I was in class with everybody else, really, and I was a bit big-headed, really, because I just thought I was better than everybody else in school, and it was good to be with, so we were all together in the same class, and of course having that edge in junior school, where I was kind of teacher's pet in a way. It was okay. When I got to secondary school, it was kind of like a eye opener because my dad didn't come and introduce himself to all the teachers, and he didn't, and the head teacher, sort of like didn't have no special affiliation to my dad or anything. So it was kind of like an eye opener, and really, but it wasn't. We weren't segregated. We were all in this same class. We sat next to each other. We sat next to our friends, and it was great in a way because in secondary school, throughout secondary school, there was only in my year there was 7 of us that were black, and we in a way kind of stuck together. It kind of stuck together, but then at the same time, because of the areas that we'd grown up in, and sort of like surrounded by British people, non-blacks, we learned to mix. So schooling wasn't segregated. It was good. It was great. It worked out all right, and we had a lot of sort of like friends. I had a lot of friends, white friends, Asian friends, and black friends. So,
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is DeAndrea.
My name is Jamari.
My name is Lynn, and I'm Rose.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Sister Lynn?
Yes, I came to this country the 2nd of October, 1968. On my arrival, I was shocked because I didn't realize that the United Kingdom was so cold. I knew it was a cold country, but not that cold. I was shocked. and I just wanted to go back home. And one of the reasons I felt the cold so badly, it was because I didn't have a coat. Well, I came with 2 other sisters, 2 brothers, so there were 5 of us, 5 Macintoshes, yes, at that time, and we had no coats. So we felt the coldness terribly, you know. It was really, really bad. So that was the reason why I felt like I wanted to go back home. And then from Heathrow Airport, I believe it was, our uncle Ebby came for us to meet us. Then we boarded another plane from London, Gatwick, to Birmingham Airport.
So we didn't have to come on coach or train. We were very lucky.
Yeah, so when we arrived in Birmingham, so our mom had red hair, very tall, beautiful. And our dad, I didn't really know if it was Pastor Dennis was my dad or the other man. I didn't know. I know one of them had to be my dad. But because my dad came to England 1956, I was just 4 years old.
When I was born.
It's not your turn. You've got to wait for your turn.
Would you like to continue?
Yes, please. Yes. So, anyway, putting that aside. Yes, my mom came 1960. I was just 7 years old. So can you imagine why I did not really know who my dad was? I knew his name was Joshua McIntosh, don't get me wrong. But then I later found out that my dad was indeed not Pastor Dennis, but Joshua McIntosh. Because when I was going towards Pastor Dennis, he told me he wasn't, but he was smiling though, he was happy. Yes, so that was, and Sister Dennis was there, so, you know, it was really nice feeling. And we later found out that Pastor Dennis and Sister Dennis were my parents' pastor and his wife, Sister Dennis, so it was nice to know that. Yes, so, And then the other thing that I suffered was that chilblain. I didn't know what that was. My toes were hurting, my feet were hurting. What's going on here? So then I told Mom, and Mom explained to me that is what you call chilblain. So it was really terrible. Then I noticed when we looked at the TV, they were only white people. I thought, where are all the black people? I thought, what kind of a country is this? I want to go back home. Yeah, so wasn't, but eventually now we get to settle down after a while. And then my dad said that we all have got to get a job. So I went to the job center and told the lady what job I would like to do, because I used to help Mr. and Mr. French in their shop because they were the ones that who used to care for us, sort of. Yeah, so the white lady who interviewed me said to me, there's a job she's sending me for this job at the factory at Digbet. They make clothes on these machines. But I said, no, I want to work in a shop. She said, no. So I realized, something isn't right. Then soon started learning that racism, prejudices, it was real. I didn't realize that. I started reflecting that when I was back home as a little girl, I remembered hearing some of the older people saying that once you have a color and you go to England, you'll go far. Meaning if you're face skin or you're white and you'll go far. But I started reflecting on that and I thought, Jesus, you know. But I went to that job at the place, but I only stayed there probably 2 weeks or so. And then I was pregnant, so that's it. Didn't work. I was 15 years old and pregnant, you know? Yeah, so that was that. I later married a man who impregnated me anyway. We later married. Yeah, so, yeah.
So what about you, Sister Rose? Have you ever experienced racial discrimination?
Racial discrimination, well, to me, I quite get on with everybody. So, well, when it comes to racial discrimination in the workplace, yeah, because for you to achieve, you've got to work so much harder than the white folks. You know what I mean? Even if you were better than they were at doing the job, they'll promote the white folks. And I remember I worked in care for almost 20 years, and this lady, her name was, I might not be able to call her name, but she was a lovely, lovely matron. And she said, Rose, you've been here a long time now, and they haven't promoted you. And I said, no. And she said, come with me to the office. And I went into the office, and she taught me how to do the medication. She showed me. And then after she showed me, she said, now it's your turn now to do it on your own. And she came back and checked, and she said, you did perfect. And then she then promoted me into the senior position. From the senior position, I was promoted to assistant manager. And then over the years, as they kept going and coming, they asked me if I wanted to be the manager, but I didn't want to be the manager. So every time I would decline. So I have achieved, and yes, I have experienced discrimination. Yeah.
Sister Lynn, in your home country, what was the education system like compared to over here?
Well, the educational system back home, they were very strict. As I said, after my mom came to this country, and I was only 7, my dad came when I was 4, my mom when I was 7, people took advantage of us. So I didn't have no schooling after a while. I kept myself out after a while to take care of my younger sisters. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I used to be always running away from bad treatment, running away to my uncle. Mm-hmm. And he wanted me to go to school in a place called Old Road. Mm-hmm. But I said to my uncle, I don't want to stay here with you and your wife without my 2 sisters. I said, my 2 brothers, they can take care of themselves, because there were 9 of us born in St. Kitts. St. Christopher, better known as St. Kitts. So what Dad and Mom did, they sent for the eldest son, that was John. Then the eldest daughter, that was Lilius. Then they sent for Jerome. Yeah, he was a second son, but they sent for him. After that, they were, 5 of us remained because Margaret was a twin. Her twin brother had died. So that's 5 of us. So then Mom and Dad sent for the 5 of us together. So 5 of us, we came over the 2nd of October, 1968, as I said before. So I didn't have any sort of like education, so to speak, because I told my uncle, since he do not want to take my 2 sisters, because I said my brothers can take care of themselves, I said, take me back. So I went back to the bad treatment, and eventually I told my parents, I can take care of my brothers and my sisters. So I went back home and back to a place they call Sadler's. So rather than staying with my uncle in a place they call Old Road, I chose rather to go back to Sadler's and to be with my sisters so I can take good care of them. But I do know when I used to go to school and Mom was there, I was bright. But after Mom left, that was it. But what I know is that the educational system, they're very strict. Very strict, very strict. Children have to go to school. If you don't go to school, they're going to find out why are you not at school. And the respect, you must respect. It's a must. You had to respect the teachers. Teachers were highly respected. You could not address them by Mary or Helen. It's teacher Mary, or by their surnames. You have to address them like that. So, and if you're late, you're going to be whipped. You can't be late for school.
Can't do that over here.
Okay. Right, well, back home, I got some over my back. Yes, in your hands, and it's the strap. When it gets around your back, you feel it on your hands, you know? So people used to try their best, and you had to be well dressed. Your hair had to be well combed. Oh my goodness. Else they'll be questioning you, and you have to get yourself straight. And the educational system back home, it was very high. The school that I remember they used to go when Mom was there is that it was a big, big building. In that vast building, there were many classes. Then they had another building for the younger children from like 5 up to probably 11 or so, or probably lower, probably 8, yeah. But when it's time for morning, they had to pray first. They had morning assembly, and they would always sing and pray and what have you. So everybody is in there, then the children have to go back over to their own space, to their own classes. But the time came when they realized that they needed to do something about capacity of seating. So they built another big, vast building school in Sadler's where all the different classes were there now, like for maths, English, history, geography, it was all there. So they had more room, more space, so everybody, the teachers had their own classes.
Yeah.
So it was good. So all in all, educational system, it's a must. And when you go to St. Christopher, better known as St. Kitts, you have slogans. Education is the key. Education is the key. All around, education is the key. They're serious about education back home, you know. And I used to smile when I went back home on holiday, went back home 1990. Education is the key. Went back home 91, education is the key. Went back home 1995, education is the key. Went back home 2011, education is the key. Yes, they're serious about it. Very serious. It's different to over here. Yeah. Over here it's totally different. It's like if a child doesn't want to go to school, they just leave you anyway. But no, they've gone serious now because the social workers, they'll come and they'll bring police as well. But sometimes some people are obstinate and they abscond, you know? I remembered my doctor telling me, you need to go to school. You want to go to school? That's when I came over here and said, no, I'm spoiled. Don't want to go. That was it, yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
No, masquerade, no.
Well, there is a little bit more in particular. I think one thing that we are both dying to know is where particular in the Caribbean are you from and what was the culture like?
I'm from St. Christopher, better known as St. Kitts, and at Christmas time it was a very festive and happy time. Everybody would be all happy and we'll have people dancers going around, right around the island, dancing and making merry, and people was happy, and there were people who come out and give the masquerade and all the macadrumby and the bull and all that lot. They would come out and give them money for entertaining them and going all around the island. And at Christmas time, it was a happy time. Everybody had their drinks, all sort of things you can eat, and it was just a happy time. And St. Kitts, it's a beautiful island, and we're surrounded by sea, so you don't have to go far to see sea. And my favorite place back home in the Caribbean was at the seaside. And to be frank, where our house was, everybody from St. Kitts, in Sadler's, everybody from Sadler's had to come past our house to go down to the sea. So my back door was the deep blue sea, and my front veranda was the mountain peak. So we were in a very good place, and everybody knows everybody there because it's a small island, and it's beautiful, and everybody is lovely and kind. You don't get nobody fighting and knifing anybody like you've got nowadays. Everybody was just happy, and as Sister Iris said, you could go out, leave your house open, come back. Everything is safe. Nobody's coming in and robbing you. But I believe things has changed now. And yes, I do love my beautiful island of St. Kitts, and it's very nice. And the churches, yeah. When back home, when it's Sunday, nobody at all, whether you're saved or unsaved, they don't play any worldly music. The only thing they play is gospel music. And when church is over, then a bit later on, not straight after, a bit later on, they would start playing their kind of music, but the Christian will continue to play gospel music. So it was very godly and heavenly on a Sunday, and good manners and good respect to the Christians. And that's what it was like back home, and I loved it. Yeah, I missed it. Still love it now. Yeah, if I had a house to go back to, I wouldn't be here. I'll be there. Some of you have got houses in Jamaica and you won't go back home. I don't know why, but I know if I had a house in St. Kitts, I'll be there. I'll say, bye, brethren, I'm out of here. And that's it, really. That's the truth.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kamani, and this is Shaquille. So we'll start with, what is your name?
My name is John McIntosh.
Where are you from, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm from St. Kitts in the West Indies. I came here when I was 15 years of age, and I find it, all of us find it different, We came here by boats. One of the main problems we're having in this country right now, the Windrush people, it's because a lot of us came by boats, drop off in Spain, drop off in France, drop off in Italy. I was dropped off in Spain. Then it took me one day and I was only 15, nothing to eat, one day to France. When we reached to France, they check our passport, because I was only a child, and 15, you can imagine a 15-year-old. So they look at your passport. When you reach to England, no customs, nothing. You go right through. You see, that is one of the main reasons why men of my age is having trouble, the Windrush people, because we didn't get our passport stamped. If you come to the airport, you usually get your passport stamped because that is there until late, isn't it? But when we went right through, that's why we're having passport. That's the trouble I had, because they didn't stamp my passport. So even though I got passports here, you could get a passport for 1 year. So I used to box. So I used to go to Spain. I've been to Spain twice. I've been to France. I've been to Germany. I've been to Holland. All this boxing, but it's nice, isn't it? When you're young, you go boxing and you go all these places, and you don't have to pay a penny, and you go. And when you go boxing, really, you go with your white friends. You know what I mean? But the English, when they go overseas, I tell you, they feel as if they rule the whole place. But I used to love it because I used to be the backup man. They go and they say what they want, and then I go and get it. I go up to the man and say, come, we're from England. And sometimes we go and they say, how the kitchen is closed. I say, no. We want steak, man. And I'll go, but I used to speak in a nice way. So the man would say, all right, then, we'll give you steak. Because when you're boxing, it's a big thing. You want steak for strength, you see. So that's how it was. So I enjoyed my boxing. I won the Midland Championships. And then I go to the quarterfinals. And what happens in the quarterfinals, I had 2 coaches of people who came to see me. I used to work at a place called Hangers. The older used to spray cars. I was one of the sprayers, you know what I'm saying? But there was a white man there, and he really loved boxing. So he put on a coach, 2 coaches for me to go to Brighton. Yes. And then what happened was when we reached there, all 2 coaches, pure white people. I'm the only black guy there. But they liked me because they had I worked there, you know what I'm saying? And when you're working in a garage, it's good to have the people who works in the factory, the garage, like to have friends who work in the paint shop, the mechanic shop, or the panel beater shop. Because you can bring me your car and say, John, can you do this? Can you do my sister's car, please? Next week I'll book it in as my family, you know what I'm saying? And then I charge a little penny. Yeah, that's for it. And that's how it was. The gentleman before me, he said quite a few things which I've heard. So I would not go over them again because a lot of what he's saying is true. He's speaking from experience. I am speaking from experience a different way. But go back to the boxing. When I got in the ring, I felt, I was fit because I trained for it. I really trained for it. And the first round, I knocked the guy down 3 times. I thought, good, I got you now. That's the way I thought, because next fight was Manchester. And that's the semifinals. So, ping, bell, went. Second round came, I knocked him down twice again. Then when he was on the carpet, he said, "You black bastard." So I did a Muhammad Ali shuffle on him, and the referee said, I kicked him. I didn't, and then I got disqualified. But I felt good because when I go back to work, they can't say, "Oh, you call yourself boxer and you're going to get beat up."
So during your time here, have you experienced any racism towards you?
I did. But the problem is, you've got to use your common sense. In everything you do, use your common sense. There are times that I meet people, my wife is white, and sometimes I go to a place and say, "What are you doing with this white woman?" I just look at them, stare at them, say nothing. You see, they're accustomed to us West Indian. Just say nothing. Because I used to box, I look fit. Just look them in the eyes and keep on staring them. And they usually walk away. Of course, since I've been in England, I'm telling you, I never had a fight, except in the ring. You've got to use it. Sometimes if fights are going to happen, walk away. It's best to walk away. You can't fight. It proves nothing. You can't fight and you get cut up or you get kicked up. Huh? You know what I'm saying? It's not good for you. So my main thing to us, the black people now, is to use your brain. As the man before me said, education is number 1 now. Education is not. Get educated if you want a big job. And even when you get a big job, qualifications, you do not get it. You do not get the job. But at least you're halfway there.
Would you say that boxing is a big part of your life when you came to the UK?
Yeah, because it was part to keep people away. Once you're a boxer, they say, "You call yourself boxer." Because I had this done to me. You call yourself boxer. So you think you're bad? Just stay cool, man. Because some of them will pull a knife at me. So I just look at them. Because you see, when you stare them in the eye and do nothing, they don't know what you're going to do. But when you start going this, that's action, they're going to attack you more. That's my experience anyhow. You see what I'm saying? Because as I say, I never had a fight in this country. Expect to in the ring. You use your brain. Your brain is usually right.
Would you say it was hard for you to leave your home country?
Nah. When you're a child, you have to do as you're told.
Was there nothing that you missed from St. Kitts?
Not really, because you see, when you're that young, 15, you have been attending school. You have to go to school. In St. Kitts, everybody have to go to school. If you don't go to school, they take your parents to court. You see? Yeah. So you must go to school. And I came here when I was 15. Imagine that. When I look at it now. And you know, when you're that age, you have to do what your mother tells you. Yeah, I mean, and if you respect your parents, you will try and do as much as you can to please your parents.
So to end it off, would you do your experience all over again?
My experience? Yeah. I had a very good life. I have beautiful children. I have a nice house. Well, I think so anyhow. Some people might know, but no. And I try to bring my children up in the way my brother brought me up. Teach me manners, teach me sense, teach me honesty. You see what I'm saying? A lot of us are honest people. Black people mainly are honest and godly people. But sometimes, you know what I mean, we don't up ourselves by expressing it in the big arenas. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But like you guys, I will show you're Christian boys, and you're trying to bring you up in the right way. So keep on in the right way, and then you can set example to others.
All right. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Hi, my name is Zara and I'm 13 years old.
Hi, my name's Kamaya and I'm 17 years old. What's your name and tell me a bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Catherine, and I've got so much to tell you, but I'm going to tell you this. I was born in Montserrat, the West Indies. I was there until I was 6 months old with my grandmother. And my parents came to England because they wanted a job, and when they came, there was nowhere to live. At that time, England would not have Irish, dogs, and blacks renting their place. So it was decided I was to stay with my grandmother. I stayed with my grandmother until I was 5 years of age, and then I came to England.
What did you experience when you come to the UK?
Horrible, absolutely horrible. I had a horrible childhood life, and when I came here, due to the dispute with my two grandparents couldn't get on with each other, they barred me from seeing my grandmother, who had me 6 months old until I was 5. She brought me to England. I used to run away from home for my grandmother because she's all I knew. My mother didn't like it. She felt because she was my mother, I shouldn't have anything to do with my grandmother. And the police used to bring me back over and over, every time to the same house. I'd say, I don't want to stay here, I want to go to my grandmother. Anyway, it happened that I stayed with them, and staying with them, I had a horrible life. My father was very aggressive. He used to take his belt off and belt us. My mother and father used to fight like cats and dogs. And each and every one of us as brothers and sisters, when the arguments start, we would all sort of run and hide, but we would always be peeping out to see what's happening. And it happened that I ended up going into a children's home. I spent a number of years in a children's home, and from there I ended up coming out and then going to school. Then I left school, and I did say when I was in school to teacher, I want a job where I can get away from home. I do not want to end up back at home.
How did you talk about all these tragic events that have happened in your life. How did you actually overcome them to become the person that you are today?
Jesus. Precious, loving, wonderful Jesus. It all started when Pastor Dennis, Sister Iris Woodley, I was in my 20s, and they came to my home and they were talking about God and the church and blah, blah. At that time, I didn't want to hear nothing about God. I was not interested. The Bible didn't interest me, and the church did not interest me. And anyway, it so happened that while they came to me, they began to pray for me. And while they were praying, I noticed Evangelist Iris Woodley looking at me and smiling. Anyway, when we'd finished, she said to me, "Would you come to church on Sunday?" And I said, I didn't want to go. And I thought, well, if I go to church, they won't come to me again about the Bible. They won't come near me with no church, and they won't mention God to me. So I made up in my mind that Sunday morning I would go to church, and that'd be the end of these church people. So I went to church, and we were at Jenkins Street here in Smallheath. And a young man, 15 years of age, Calvin Simpson, his mother is a member of the church, Sister Simpson. He stood up to preach, and he had one hand in his pocket and the other hand holding the Bible, and he was preaching about Jonah. And I sat there and I was listening to him, and he kept on about Jonah, and I felt a conviction. I really began to feel troubled within. And it happened, he wouldn't stop, and he kept on. And the more he preached, the more it was affecting me. And I couldn't stand it anymore. I stood up in the middle of the church. That time I didn't realize the church was full of people. I stood up and I put my hand up in there and I said, "Thank you very much for the message. I heard what you said, and the message was for me." And I sat down and I felt the burden had just lifted off my shoulder. I felt a second peace, a contentment. And I just felt a different person. With that, Calvin Simpson moved off the scene and called the next one to give the altar call. And he came and he gave the altar call, and he said, "I'm not forcing anybody to come to the altar." He said, "The altar is here. If you want to come, come." I sat there and I still wouldn't move. And I felt like a force raised me up from my seat and took me straight to the altar to kneel down. And I was kneeling there. It was like a wrestling. There was a wrestling in my spirit, a wrestling. And I happened to put my hand on my head because I really began to feel this heavy burden. And I had a wig on at that time. And I put my hand on the head, and I just felt the wig, and I was so angry. I dragged the wig off my head, and I began to spin it, and I just let it go. And I was told by Sister Jennifer Woodley that she picked up the wig, and she said to me, "Sister Catherine, this is your wig." I said, "Well, if it's my wig, what's it doing in your hand? Why have you got it?" So, "Sister Catherine, you was at the altar, and God was dealing with you, Sister Catherine. And Sister Catherine, you put your hand on your head and you felt your wig and you dragged it off. You spin your wig and you let it go, and it went right to the back of the church." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yes, Sister Catherine. And I went and picked up your wig, and this is your wig." And I looked at Sister Jennifer, and I looked at the congregation. It was packed. It was a lot of people. And I realized to myself, and I began to, the penny dropped, and I realized, that's the reason. I said, Sister Evangelist Iris Woodley spotted something when she was in my presence. She discerned me. And she was well ready and prepared for me to come to church, that God would have his way with me. Now, if I knew that I was going to do that, there's no way I would have gone to church. I would not have gone that Sunday morning to do that, to stop the preacher and to be in such a state that I pulled the wig off my head and let it go, and it went to the back of the church. But then saying that, every time I think about it, I laugh. Because I think, for me, that's the best thing happened. Because then I realize that I just cannot get away from God. As much as I didn't want the church, the Bible, and this Christianity, I cannot get away from the Almighty, Sovereign Jehovah.
What kind of advice would you give to young people who experience the same thing that you did?
Have your steps ordered by the Lord. When you are young, you pray and ask your steps to be ordered by the Lord. You do not lean on your own understanding, because you will fail. And he knows you by name and nature. He knows the step that you take. You're uprising, you're down sitting, and your thoughts are far off. He knows you better than you know yourself. So the advice I would give any young person, have your steps ordered by the Lord while you are young.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
My name is Isaac.
My name is Tion, and what's your name?
My name is Sandra Roper.
Can you tell us your first impression of moving here to the UK?
When I came to the UK, I was first attracted to the houses. The fact, when I came off the plane and driving from the airport going home and saw the houses, I thought, considering the type of houses that I was coming from in Jamaica, and I could see what I thought at the time to be smoke coming out of the chimneys. There was a lot of chimneys, and I'm thinking, boy, a lot of smoke coming out of these houses. So that was my first impression, you know. And it's like all the houses were all joined up to each other. I couldn't see much of a land space and things like that. So that was my first impression of what the type of houses.
Have you ever experienced racial discrimination?
Yes, I have in quite a few of the jobs that I've done. And I think the reason for that was because of the title that I carried. I carried a few senior titles, and I didn't think being black that matched the role of that title, you know. So I had to challenge a few people within the work environment.
Could you talk more about how you challenged those people with your role?
Well, what I found was that there was a lack of education about people being black and working in certain roles. So one of the first things I had to do, because sometimes when they come in, they think that I was a tea lady or a cleaner or a domestic helper. And so I had to make it clear who I was, and often correct them in terms of, you know, asking if they really need the cleaner, I could go and get the cleaner, things like that. And then I was also asked, were you educated here? Because I was able to speak English and not coming out of with a lot of patois in that role, or whatever role I was carrying at the time. And I do speak patois, but, you know, I don't know, a lot of people may think because you are educated in Jamaica, you're not able to work in certain roles or speak a perfect English, not perfect, but good English. So what I would advise is that when you challenge to educate so that you don't face this continuous discrimination all the time. Never ignore, always challenge.
Thank you for that advice. What is your best memory of living in the UK?
My best memory, one of my best memory, is the day I got married, or planning to get married here. I was so excited to get married, I didn't think of white. Getting married in white. I got married in blue. And it was it was very funny on the day because I'm asking myself, what am I doing in this blue dress right through the wedding? And every time I look up to my husband, I was crying and he was crying. And I'm saying, what you crying for? And he said, what you crying for? I said, more thinking, why am I in this blue dress and not a white dress? So that was one of my, cherished memories. Because I was very happy on the day, but still sad that I stood up in a blue dress. And I don't know the reason why I wore that blue dress. Yes, so that was one of my fondest memory. And growing up my children as well and what they've achieved. Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering our questions.
Thank
And
you for having me.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tion.
And I'm Kiana.
Could you tell us your name and a little bit about yourself?
Good afternoon, Kian and Tiana, and Tion and Kiana. My name is Basil Richards, also known as Bill, and there's a story around that, but we can cover that another time, possibly. And I know you know me as Bill. I came to the UK from the Caribbean island of Jamaica, born there. Lovely place, and it would be good for you to visit at some point when you're able to. I came to the UK to join my parents with my younger sibling at the time, Gideon, and we came and met up with our other sibling that was in the UK now, Stanley. And there's a whole story around that, but I think I'll have to reserve that for another time. It's quite hilarious, some of the things that happened when we actually met up and some of the things that we got up to, but we can cover that another time. I came to the UK in 1962. I was born 1954, so you can do the maths and see that I came here when I was very young, 8 years old at the time.
And we already know you as a bishop, but how did you come to that?
All right, good question. When I came here in 62, I was very young, joining my parents, visiting the Church of God of Prophecy at Farm Street, as it was then. They were fellowshipping in a schoolroom. I eventually got saved, attending that church. And over a period of time, I took on some leadership responsibilities. Started as I think my first appointment was as they call it care group or cell group leader at the time, band leader, I think it was called back in those days. And I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the responsibility. And then I took on more responsibility, obviously, after that. And then in the course of time, I got married to my beautiful wife, Margaret, whom you know very well. And then also took on still further leadership responsibilities. Ended up becoming a missionary for a number of years, started in Belize in Central America, then to Haiti in the Caribbean, over to Africa in West Africa, Ghana and Liberia, and then eventually ended up in Botswana. When I became the overseer for Botswana, eventually I had to take on the responsibility of oversighting the nation, and then became a bishop during the process of all of that.
So how did the people from the Commonwealth come to start their own churches?
That's a good question. Well, there was a number of people that came from the Caribbean, obviously, who were Christians back in the Caribbean islands, wherever they came from. Some were belonging to some of the mainline churches like the Baptists and the Church of England. And obviously they came to the UK intending to join their own fellowship. They met with some challenges because they weren't readily accepted because of their color. and the prejudice that they encountered. And so they were encouraged, some of them, even to go and look for fellowship elsewhere, and ended up, some of them, joining some of the Pentecostal churches that was more readily accepting of them. For those who were Pentecostal in the Caribbean, particularly the Church of God of Prophecy, and then you had the New Testament Church of God as well, many of those who came to the UK had similar challenges in trying to fellowship with the people in the UK, but because of their color and the prejudice that they faced, many of them ended up having to have fellowship in their own houses. And you will hear this said many times over, that they started in the front room. So they started to have their Sunday school, their church services in the front room. And then as the numbers grew, as more people came and heard what was happening and joined in with those because they weren't accommodated elsewhere, the numbers started to grow, and they ended up looking for buildings that could accommodate them. And many of the buildings that they looked for that was ready, more available to them, was the schoolrooms. So they started to rent school halls. And there's some stories around them renting the school halls, because when they had their services in the schoolrooms, you will hear about the caretakers that were there to ensure that they kept to their time, because they had a slot. They would be having their services, you can imagine. They were excited. Things were happening. The Spirit was moving. The message was going. And then the caretaker would be there with the bell ringing and saying, it's time, you now have to stop and finish. And they had to put up with this for quite some time. Eventually, as their numbers grew, they started to look for places further that could really accommodate them, and they find their own places. So some of them got together. They trooped through partner money amongst themselves, and they started to generate funds that way. They went out canvassing for funds, and then they started to look for buildings that they could purchase, and ended up purchasing their own buildings, and then started to have the fellowship in those buildings. So that's how many of the churches started.
You talked about the challenges that you faced, but it all prevailed in the end. So what I'd like to ask you is, are you proud of the legacy of the Commonwealth?
Very much so, Tion. Very much proud of our legacy. It's come at a cost, because many of those who came here faced challenges in that they weren't accepted. They were told that when they looked for houses, there was no room for them. And they had to find alternative means to sort of look after themselves. But they still invested in us, the second generation coming across. And they expended themselves. They ensured that we were educated so that we in turn could start to build up our resources and our capacity, and then not have to rely on external sources to fund us. So I'm very proud of the legacy that they have left us. They've built in us what I would call a tenacity and an ability to sort of look out for ourselves and look out for what we can do to establish ourselves. So they've instilled that in us, and I'm so proud that that legacy continues, and it continues in yourselves, so that as you also continue to be educated and build up your capacity and your resources, you're going to be passing on to the next generation that will be following you. So the legacy goes on, and I'm very proud to see where we have arrived now, but I'm looking ahead as to where we are going to be achieving and accomplishing later.
Thank you. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your insight, and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, and thank you for being here. And I trust that you will continue to be united and rise up to seize your goal and your destiny in the process. God bless you, and thank you.
So, good afternoon. My name is Shaquille, and I'm here with...
My name's Kamaya, and what's your name? And tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, hello Shaquille and Kamaya. My name is Margaret Richards. I was born in the Royal Jubilee Hospital in Kingston, Jamaica. I was then brought up in St. Thomas, the parish of St. Thomas, in a particular place called Seaforth. I went to school in Seaforth and Morant Bay, my parents came to England, my father in 1962 and my mother in 1963. And then, you know, we were left, my sibling and myself were left with my grandmother and aunt, and we came to England in 1966.
What was your first impression of coming to England?
It was very cold, very gloomy. The houses seemed to be so close together, seemed to be little space for playing, for us children playing. And we traveled by train from Manchester Airport to Darlington, which is about 36 miles from Newcastle, just to give you a bit of idea of the location. And there were lots of chimneys, you know, we wondered what these were. Listening to some people, they think that they were like factories, but it was a very cold, dark and dismal place, not like our son in Jamaica at all.
Are you proud of the legacy that the Commonwealth citizens left behind?
Definitely. You know, we have made such a difference to this country in our culture, our food, our music. You know, Jamaica and other West Indian, Caribbean islands, and places of the Commonwealth, different countries, have really made an impact here. And this country is a better place for us being here, definitely.
What is your best memory of? Is this one? Yeah. What is your best memory of the UK?
Being reunited with my parents. The fact that my sibling and we were separated, just growing up together, you know, we had fun together. Enjoyed that very much.
What would you say you miss the most about your country?
Everything. The food, the sunshine, the space for playing. In Jamaica, you know, you have yard, you have out spaces that you can play and run about all day. We would go to the river, catch janga, shrimps, and we would bathe, and it was just beautiful. There was freedom. Also, another thing that I remember as a child coming to this country, for security reasons, when we first came here, there was a lot of kidnapping of children. Sweetie man, they used to call them. And our parents were very, very much concerned for us. So we were confined to playing at home. If we went to the park, we had to go with children. And I can remember one of the experiences that I had at school was there was a park next door to our school. And we were allowed, I mean, those days, we could go to the shops during lunchtime. We could go to the park to swing and all of that on the swings. And I remember one lunchtime, there was a young girl that had gone to the toilets in the park, and somebody was in there, a man was in there and tried to grab hold of her. So, you know, the security was a problem, you know, during that time.
So are there any tragic events that occurred and how did you overcome them?
Yes. As I said, we lived in Darlington. There were very few black people in Darlington, and we came to visit Birmingham, to visit a cousin in Birmingham, 1969, I think it was. And unfortunately, I caught TB. TB was more prevalent here. In Darlington, we didn't even hear of TB. And going back to Darlington, I realized, I became very ill. I was in hospital. They didn't know what was wrong with me. And then we came back to Birmingham with my parents, and it was here that it was diagnosed. And it really could have devastated my life at that time. I was 15. I had to be hospitalized for a number of months with some horrible, horrible treatment. And also because of the fact that it's a disease that is contaminating. People in those days with TB had to be looked after in what they call a sanatorium or into the country. I think this was in Romley. I think it was in Worcestershire that this place was. And there I was as a 15-year-old, away from my parents, away from my siblings, on medication for a very long period of time. My schooling had to be stopped. And it was during that time that I really fully gave myself to the Lord. Brought up in a Christian home, but I said to God, if you would heal me of this, then I would really give my life totally to you. And my mother especially was a praying woman, and she would not give up. The church at Farm Street, not as we know it now, but, we were in a school hall then, at that time, and they prayed, and really, through that I was able to get over it. And I came out, and because I didn't have qualification as I didn't take my CSE then, but you could go to college, but then I needed a grant to go to college. I was refused, and I appealed. I wrote a letter of appeal. I got in, and there I studied, got my O-levels, my A-levels, and from then I went into nursing. So really I decided from that age to seek God, serve God, and really, the Bible talk about seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things will be added, and I'm a product of that. And I'm really glad for that. And that's what's really has kept me during the years, because when I think of where God has brought me from, I can't but give him thanks and praise and serve him. So that's where I'm coming from. So out of a tragedy, there came triumph. Because in that, I really dedicated my life to God at 15, and I've never looked back since.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Zara, and I'm 13 years old.
Hi, my name's Jaden, and I'm 11 years old.
Good afternoon, Zara and Jaden. Certainly it's good to be here with you both, and I'm looking forward to this interview.
So are we.
What is your name, and can you tell us a bit about yourself?
My name is Wilton Powell. I was born in a small village or district in Jamaica called Hillside. Hillside is located in St. Thomas. It's on the border of Sergio Island Sugar Estate. It's a river called the Marant River that flows between Hillside and that sugar estate.
So, Bishop, were you excited to come to the UK? What were some of the thoughts going through your mind as you were coming to the UK?
I was glad to come to the UK. I was sad to leave Jamaica because as a child, I loved my country. But there were things I wanted at that early stage in life, because we were made to be aware of the fact that being educated, being technically qualified, and all the other things that works in the modern world were the areas and the territories that we were heading for. So therefore, traveling away from our district, and of course, my father came here years before. My mother and my elder sister, they came years before me. So I was looking forward to leaving, because when I see what was happening there in Jamaica at that time, my friends were going to high school, going to other places, and in a small village or district in St. Thomas, the future wasn't bright to remain there. So therefore, I wrote to my father, by the way, one of the first letters I wrote, was to say to my father, look, this is my time to leave, because I wanted to travel to England to get into the educational system while I was still young. Yeah, so that was one of the first little projects I did in terms of as a personal project for myself.
What did you miss about your home country? What did you miss about your home country?
I really, to reflect on it now, I didn't, of course I must have missed things, but I had not thought about it in those terms. All I wanted to do was to get away. And when you are a child, and when you look towards the future, and it was we were informed as children that we had to better ourselves. We were intensely ambitious. If you travel the Caribbean in those days, I don't know what's like now, but specifically Jamaica, all our youngsters were motivated to achieve and to go to places and to do things, unusual things, and to become men and women of renown and professionally engaged. So our minds were set to climbing that social and intellectual and economic mountain. So that's where we were going.
So you talk about a lot about the ambition that you had. Where did that ambition really just come from?
Well, I started thinking about it the other day, and I thought we live by what you call a sugar manufacturing industry, cane farming community, manufacturing sugar. And the first time I went into a sugar factory, I was about 12. And when I saw how the machinery worked, lived beside the hydroelectric power station, I went there and I sat with the operators who ran the station. And I say it was a completely different world that we live in the district. There was no electricity. We had pipe water and things like that was available, but there was nothing other than that there. And when you could see the contrast between what we now call the developed world or the technological world and the community in which we live, there's no way that you're going to sit around and say, look, oh, well, I'm quite happy to live in this way. The motivation is that given the teachers, and in fact, the teachers we had in those days were highly personal. And what I meant by that is that they were directing us as children to achieve. And that was a word that went around our schools.
Are you proud of the legacy that Commonwealth citizens have left?
The legacy coming out of Windrush? What do you mean, the legacy of Windrush?
So like people all that are in the Commonwealth, the legacy that they have left coming to the UK and, striving.
Coming to the UK really for those jobs. And in fact, the context, a bigger picture of our society is the fact that the war has just been finished. The war was finished in 1945, so throughout the 50s and the 60s, it was a period of reconstruction and reframing the economy, economically, socially, the social services, the hospital services, and all of those essential functions within the society were being framed. But at that time, I did not realize that they needed cheap labor to make it work. They need people, which many people died during the war, and that's one of the important things for you to realize. The number of people that they lost, particularly men, and women also. So therefore, they wanted people with a level of knowledge, skills, because the educational standard in the Caribbean, although it was not a technical education, but into reading and writing and being able to navigate themselves around a society, we had that level of knowledge that suited them here. So therefore, thousands of our people were brought here as a mass migration in order to enable the society to reorganize and to restructure its practices, principles, and to develop in a constructive way.
Yeah.
You follow? Okay. I take a piece out afterwards. I shouldn't say that. Okay.
So you talk about education as well. You talked about education, and how important was education to you?
It was critical. It was, in order, if we were to live here and to be an effective part of a society, and what I mean by being an effective part, in other words, we were going to participate at various levels. And one thing that we must not avoid is the fact that racism was dominant. For example, housing. The housing conditions were poor. Most of us lived in multiple occupied properties, and there would be huge criticisms in the paper, and I'm sure I'm not allowed to name them on the television, but most papers, on a Sunday papers particularly, you would see stories being published about overcrowded housing, which is a contradiction in the sense that immigrants were invited into this country and there were no provision of housing. And they put up notices, we will not house blacks, and the other names that were associated with. So it was a very difficult time for people to orientate themselves within the society.
Yeah, I think that's like really inspiring, just hearing like your story and your perspective on many different things like education, and that makes me value education more.
Well, our parents really wanted us to, as children, to achieve the best. They knew that they believe, in fact, I think the appropriate term would be, they sacrificed themselves, because our parents were in their 20s, 30s, some were 40s, and the oldest of the immigrants then were 40s. A few might have been 50s, but usually only people in the 40s, 30s, and 20s, 30s, and 40s were allowed to come. Others came, but they came by other means, by alternative means, let me say it that way. But they did not, in the early years, have many people here beyond 40 years of age. All the immigrants are young people.
Yeah. Do you have any closing comments, Jaden?
No, that was just very inspiring what you just said.
So I'm going to thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your story and just your opinion on so many different things. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me, and I really do appreciate the fact that you wanted to speak to myself and others. But we were the children of the immigrants. Our fathers, most of them now, died, and even those who are now senior to myself were possibly parents, and there are some who are still here. But one thing I'd love to say, and a message I want to underline, is that our parents were determined, they were committed, they wanted the best for their children and grandchildren, and just as much as we want the best for you. And our determination is that you will be good at what you do, whatever it is that you do, whether it's music, whether it's science, whether it's arts, whatever avenue within the society you wish to do. We want to see you explode. There's nothing that is so difficult that you cannot. Color is only an external veneer, an external shade. But intellectually and spiritually, you are as good as anyone else, and you should maintain an attitude of life to achieve the very, very best. Never doubt yourself. Always look up, always be, and let me say, be confident without being boastful. Thank you very much for having me, Zara and Jaden. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.